January. And we'll go straight into item one, approval of the agenda.
Offer motion for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Kevin, we'll do the number 2 salary study, and Miss Beasy, if she's on.
She's not on yet. She contacted me over the weekend. She tested positive for COVID in the last week. She was hoping to have a negative test. She did not have a conclusive negative. So she dropped off the material this morning, and she was going to go back actually to a hotel room here and try to call in.
To bring me and Bo up to speed, this pay study for all employees.
Yes, it was phased in. We've been doing departmental pay studies for the last number of years, but the board voted to start last year. To do a countywide pay study. Last year we did about a third of the county. This year we originally decided to do it in three steps, with DSS and health being the third year, because they were already in a salary plan matching up with the state. The positions did not need to be studied, just the salary compensation needed to be adjusted for market. But last year the board decided to go off and move up those departments in with the rest of it. So we finished off the remaining part of the county this year. And that's what this study does. So with this includes public safety, which is sheriff, jail, EMS, DSS, health department. Those are your three.
Well, we don't have any salary fires, so the city does.
Do they include custodians in this?
They did.
Those last year or this year?
So this is 100% countywide.
Yes. In between last year and this year, now every county employee has been a part of the study. And this is the implementation with it. And with that, basically what we did, we've seen a trend of about 10%, just in the informal studies that we had. Then last year, the study came in, and when I say 10%, that's average. You may have one position that's 15%, one position that's 4%. So.
Was it based on years of service? Based on
They did, with this, they looked at the position, just the average market for that position. Thereafter, working with them, we came up kind of with a strategy on where you have two people doing the same job. One's brand new, one has 10 years with the county. So what we did, we came up with a progression rate of 1.25% or 1.5%.
Yeah, we average the years of service total for the county and the years in the current position. And then we come up with, that's where we place them, the actual allocation of the salary, that's where we place them. But this study determines the appropriate grade assignment, and then we use that methodology to assign them the actual salary within that grade.
Does the studies goes off the surrounding counties?
Yes, that's exactly, our region, our region.
I think that starts somewhere in here on a chart.
The actual survey is
27.
and I'm just trying to get up to speed.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
it's behind the summary.
Yeah, that's every position that was studied, that chart.
It was on
page 19, they make some comment about some of the other counties too.
Yeah, so the counties being compared, Anson, Bladen, Cumberland, Hoke, Lee, Moore, Richmond, Robinson, and the city of Laurinburg.
I will say this, during the study, or during the conversation about the study, one of the things that concerned me, Duke, it was that, and I'm gonna let somebody smarter than me, Susan or Kevin, one comment on this. We had what I think somebody used the term compression, in that we had so many people that were jammed in the first few steps that, we had people who were hired new, who were
Making what they were making.
pretty much making what somebody may have been here for 10 or 12 years. And one of the attempts, as I understand it, was to try to
Mhm.
relieve that.
To create, basically place them where they should be based on their years.
Which was gonna be a little bit of a cost factor involved. To do that was gonna take some money.
And part of that is also the reason why we're looking at that 10-year employee is further than that 2-year employee.
So, I mean, I guess since she's not, doesn't look like she's coming in here, do you or Susan know enough of this to present whatever their basic finding is? I mean, we don't need to go page by page. We just got these books, so we haven't had time to digest it really.
A lot of reading.
Yeah.
And also, still, a lot of it is still gonna be extremely dense to try to figure out. With this,
With this class recommendations tab, but I don't see a chart or something, anything, maybe in there.
Get her on her mobile.
All right. Anyway, sorry.
if you look, the big thing on here is the overall cost of implementation. If you look down at the bottom of page 19, is 0.3 million.
I'm sorry, Kevin, is that for the part of the study that's covered in this
Okay.
phase?
That is this
Hang
phase.
on
It's
just a
this
minute.
phase.
Hello?
She gonna go to meet or YouTube.
I don't think she would.
Okay. I tell you what, let me get the information here. Yeah, well, that and, let's see. Did you, call in, well, it won't matter. Call in, I'll give you a number here, 872-240-3311. And then there's an access code, 376-128-365. And then it'll be a pound. And an audio pin is a 585. And if that doesn't work, just call back.
Items 5 and 6, just to keep us moving.
I'm fine with that if everybody else is.
Yeah.
We can move to item 5, which is SCAT resolution. Kevin?
Yes, after the public hearing was held, the information was forwarded up to DOT, and then they passed back, well, we would like you to do this resolution as well. And it is the resolution going along with the grant that was, you held the public hearing for. The DOT just did not ask for the resolution until after it was submitted.
Do we have a copy of it? Or is it in our?
It's in your
It
package.
should be. It's standard DOT language.
I'm not gonna try to go through it. It's in here, I just page through there to find it.
Page 22,
Yeah, got it.
here's the therefore.
Come on. This thing's not being cooperative today.
Basically, it's a resolution authorizing SCATS to apply for the grant.
Offer mo,
Mr. Chair, I move adopt the resolution.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, appointment to the East Point Board of Directors. Carol, I got a call from Carol about this after our last meeting. For some reason, I had in my mind we did it in December, but apparently all we did was talk about it. And unless there's somebody in this room that wants to assume that chair, that position with East Point, I'm taking over your whole.
You're fine.
Because you're supposed to.
You know more than I know.
But, unless somebody else, then she's asking to be reappointed, because it doesn't have to be a commissioner position.
I think what I remember the conversation was we thought we would like for her to continue, but we weren't sure whether it had to be a commissioner or not.
Right.
And if it doesn't,
And it doesn't, right, Jason?
It does not.
Right. But that, she drives for
I'll
that
call you back on
quite
my phone.
extensive.
Mount Olive, I think.
Not all of it, so that's pretty good haul.
And it is a 3-year appointment.
Right.
Since she was serving as commissioner, there was no termination of appointment.
Okay.
Since she was not serving as commissioner, it would be a 3-year. And for anybody else that goes on in that position, it'd be 3 years.
I was thinking. me too.
Yeah, I will, I mean, I was looking.
I just jumped right in there, but anyway, that's.
Yeah, so, based upon what our chair has offered, for the recommendation that Carol McCall, who has served since 2013, serve the next 3 years, on the term of East Point Board of Directors.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Are we back to,
We'll be on the phone with her in a moment.
okay. I guess we can just,
Page in here.
I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, Paige told me to call him whenever y'all are ready. If y'all are ready, I can.
and I mean, it's fine with me if he can be over here quick. I don't want her having to wait that long on the phone, but I mean, he's just gotta walk across the street.
Yeah.
So,
Let me find his number here.
walk me through.
Hey, this is Jason. They're ready for you. If you can get over
In the
Okay.
meantime, there's biscuits over here, drinks, whatever anybody wants to.
here, please help yourself.
Becky, it's Kevin.
Yes,
Okay, I have you on speakerphone. I'll put you down here, so you should be able to be heard, and I'll pull up your slides now.
okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am so sorry this has been so awkward. I really thought I was going to be negative. I tested negative 3 straight days, and then the 4th I went back to positive.
That's all right, I understand.
Just let me know when you're ready. with
We're
the
ready,
slides.
we're ready when you are. He's got the slides up.
Okay, so we'll just get through the information about our company. We obviously have worked with a lot of cities and counties. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and we're happy to be working with you again. This is the second we initially had planned a 3-year cycle, and the county decided, I think because of this really incredible labor market we're in now, to go ahead and combine years 2 and 3. So what we're presenting to you is the other 2/3 of the organization. And we can skip through our clients and go to the first slide that says classification and pay study,
We're there.
2 sides of the coin.
Okay.
And so there are 2 pieces to this. The classification side of the coin is looking at what are the duties in a job. And in order to do that, we've had employees complete questionnaires. We've interviewed them. It's been a very long time since the county had looked at updating on a comprehensive basis the classifications and the class specifications or job descriptions. So that's a very important part of what we're doing, is updating that information. And they recommended changing a fair number of titles because of that. There's a lot of titles. The duties have changed over time, and so they were no longer really accurate. And then, of course, the pay side is looking at what is the market right now for various jobs, surveying and looking at that. If you go on to the next slide, where I have a classification and pay plan, obviously recruiting and retaining employees. I've been doing HR in the public sector since 1978 versus internal HR, including HR director in Cary and Durham County. So this is the worst labor market in terms of being able to hire and keep people. And since 1978, so what is that? A long time. And so trying to stay competitive is obviously a very important part of this, as well as what we're looking at is making sure we're looking across departmental lines, making sure that we're comparing jobs. So there's also internal equity, recommending salary ranges that we're hoping will create equal pay for equal work, but also in terms of maximizing cost effectiveness, making sure that, we aren't recommending things that are beyond the market. We try to be consistent in every job we look at and in recommending something that's at market, but not leading, not falling behind market. And then defensible is that what we're doing, of course, especially with the classification side, making sure things like Fair Labor Standards Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, OSHA bloodborne pathogen standards, that we're updating consistent with those laws. And then if you go on to why I do studies, I've talked a little bit about the fact that jobs change over time for a number of different reasons. And so updating those class titles as well as the job descriptions is important. And then, of course, the market changes at different rates for different jobs. So if you do a cost of living adjustment across the board, that might hit on average some jobs, but some jobs are changing faster in the market than others. So you really need to look at the individual salaries for jobs. And that's what we've done in this study. And again, it's good to try to do this about every 5 years to keep things up to date, not get in a hole. So to go on to the next slide, the steps in the study, obviously the county identified the need. We always do an employee orientation session because it's important that the study have credibility with employees. And we take them through what we're doing, how we're doing it, answer questions. The employees complete questionnaires, as I said earlier, on their job duties. We review those. We do interviews with at least one employee with every different set of job duties. They go back to our office, do the analysis, gather the salary data, put everything in a draft. And of course, we're at the step of presenting it to the board today. If you go on to the methodology slide, there I'm just making the difference, a distinction between a position and a classification. at the beginning. And probably a good example of that would be if you look at the sheriff's department, which is included in the study this year, there might be 20 positions in the classification of deputy sheriff. There's only one position in the classification of sheriff. So you can have multi-position classifications, you can have single position classifications. The only time we put multiple positions in the same classification is when all the duties are similar enough that any one applicant with a given set of knowledge, skills, and abilities can do any of those jobs. If a job requires a substantially different knowledge or skill or ability, it goes in a different classification. The class specification, as I said earlier, similar to a job description. The only difference is a job description describes a single position. So actually the questionnaires the employees completed is their job description. We take that and turn it into the class specification, which is a little bit broader, a little bit more formalized, and covers all the positions in that classification. The most important distinction there, very important, is the difference between employee and position. In this, what we're looking at in the study is jobs, not people. We can classify vacant position and will, and did in many cases. The supervisor completed the questionnaire, told us what the duties are, and then we can classify that job and recommend pay range. We're not looking at, and if you go on to the next slide, are some of the things that often are misunderstood about classification. So we're not looking at the person's length of service, the person's qualifications, the person's performance. What we're really looking for, volume of work. You can have, administrative assistant in one department that's processing, so many invoices. One in another department processes even more invoices. But what we're looking at is not how many times somebody does something, but rather what is the level of knowledge and skill required to do that, and what is the value of that in the labor market. If you go on to the classification factor, those are the factors we are looking at, and when we're looking at the same classification level and which ones are at different classification levels. Now, I'm not going to get through all of those, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions as we come to the end of all this on any of that. Turning to the compensation system on the next slide, there are 4 primary components of a compensation system, both public sector and private sector. Different organizations combine them in different ways, but each one has a separate purpose, and none of them take the place of any other one. So I'm just going to walk you quickly through those 4. And if you go to the next slide, it's the first one, and that is the major focus of this study: updating the classifications, updating the assignment to pay ranges based on market changes. And so when we find jobs that are under market, we do recommend what we call catch-ups. It's not pay raises. We're really recommending catching people up closer to where they should be already. The second of those 4 compensation components on the next slide, most typically this is called a cost of living adjustment. Compensation professionals call it a market adjustment, because what you're doing is looking at what's going on in the market and moving your whole pay table up. It could be 2%, 3%, 5%, 7%, whatever is going on in the market. And that's moving the hiring rate so it stays competitive, and also moving the maximum. And keeping that going in between studies is very important, so you don't get too far behind, and also to help keep down the cost of turnover, which is very expensive. If the county did not do this, and your competitors do, then what would happen is over time, their starting salaries would be getting higher. If yours are staying the same, it would get to the point you could only hire people nobody else wanted, which obviously is not what we want to do. The third of those components is having some way of moving employees across that range. That's an important component, because if you don't move employees across the range, then, they're just stuck at the beginning parts of the pay range, they're gonna go somewhere else. So when we talk about competitiveness, it really is two components. It's not just having the starting salary competitive where people actually are in the range, and if that is also competitive for their level of knowledge and experience in that job. So that's a very important component. And then the final one is longevity pay, that last slide, recognizing and appreciating employees based on length of service, usually in lump sum amounts. So I usually, at this point, we do a flip chart and talk about how, when you look at a pay table, and probably the best way to do that without the flip chart, does everybody have their binders in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, so if folks will turn to page here, 22 in that binder.
Okay.
And what you see there is the actual salary schedule. And the pay going down the passage, that is intended to represent the job.
Is that a proposed or is that an actual?
That's an actual,
Okay.
because we're only doing part of the county's employees this year, we couldn't create a new pay table because it would throw the other 1/3 off.
Right.
So that is the actual. And so that when we talk, the grades are there to represent the jobs. So you wouldn't move somebody, for example, from a grade 53 to a grade 54 because they've been there a while. If the duties are the same, then the classification is the same, and then the grade is the same. So you move employees across the range from hourly rate to minimum when they pass probation, and then over time on up to a midpoint maximum based on increased knowledge and skill within that job. The duties then change significantly, and the job should be reclassified who may change the actual grade. So if you want to go back then just to the beginning, and I'll walk you through everything that's here, and of course answer any. Well, let me pause. Are there any questions at this point before I go on?
Did everyone understand what she was talking about? Instead of going
Mhm.
vertical, we would go horizontal in her instance that she did.
Right.
And then once you max out, you go
Or
to
promotion.
this, or promotion, then you go to another grade. Makes sense to me.
Well, the other thing is, every time we do a cost of living, that whole table should change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it does.
The hourly rate should change and the maximum should change. Whenever we have provided a spreadsheet to the county that makes that easy to do.
Ms. Becky,
Yes, sir.
yeah, and that causes some of the problems down the road if you don't, well, increasing the hiring, starting pay. That's when you get the log jam with new employees making what veterans are making. These are some of the.
Yeah, that's why when we implement the study, we don't put everybody at the beginning. We move them out across the range based on length of service.
Yes, ma'am.
If you look back at page 21, you'll see that there is some compression, even though we place people out across the range. There still are, and you can see that 5 people at the beginning, and those should be people who haven't passed probation, and then 34 at 5% in the range, and should be fairly new folks who just passed probation. And then you've got a lot of folks at the 10% point. And that, hopefully over time, they continue to move across that range. It's very important to continue to fund the way that the county is moving folks across the range.
And if Becky, if I
Did that
may
answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
And if I may interject there, Becky, is that the county has passed, in recent years, our salary progression plan. And
Yes.
in that we move on their anniversary date, we will move them at 1.25% within that range to get them up based on their years of service. Once they reach midpoint, however, they get the 1%, but they're still getting incremental changes and moving up within the range.
Yes, and that's very important. That's how you address that bottleneck at the beginning.
And that's in addition to cost of living or anything else.
Right.
And then there's also longevity pay, which is a different aspect.
Are you ready for me to just walk you through what's in the binder?
Yeah, go ahead, that's good.
Okay, so there's a, letter and a cover page, and then a table of contents. We did some organization charts that just reflect as our understanding of actual reporting relationships and recommended titles. That might just kind of give you a visual. And then the last page before the first blue tab is just informational methodology, which I've talked about already. If you go to the first blue tab, report recommendations, there's a department by department narrative that basically gives you a thumbnail sketch of each of the classifications that we looked at. Tells you a little bit about the duties, if we recommended changing the title, why, anything else, like if that job happens to be significantly different than the labor market in some important aspects, we'll tell you that. That takes you on over to page 19. And what you see at the top there on page 19 is who we surveyed. We tried to look at, who are you, who's within a commutable distance, because that is your most intense competitors in the labor market. And those percentages you see is the difference between the starting salaries and the maximum salaries in their salary range. And you'll see that their average is 54%, and the county has a 55% range, which is right in line. At the bottom of that page is how we are recommending implementing, which is consistent with last year. And of course, that's very important, treating employees this year the same way employees were treated last year. And what that does is takes everybody at least to probation completion plus 1.5% per year of blended service. And what I mean by blended service, just to give you an example, if you've got a sergeant in the sheriff's department who's been with the county for 15 years, but he's only been a sergeant for 5 years, you wouldn't want to put him in the sergeant range as if he'd been a sergeant for 15 years. So we take the 15 years of total service, the 5 years as a sergeant, we add those together to get 20 and divide it in half. And then we place him in the sergeant range as if he with 10 years of service. So that gives him some credit for having been with the county longer than he's been a sheriff, but doesn't pretend that he's been a sergeant the whole time he's been there. And then we move that sergeant 1.5% per year. So 1.5% times 10 means that sergeant would be placed at 15% above the minimum for probation completion point in the salary range. Let me pause and see if there are any questions about that.
I don't think so.
And you see the lump sum there. That is, there are some important notes here on page 20. That amount is the salary dollars only. That does not include the cost of benefits. Anytime you do this and you're placing people in a range, what we don't know is any previous service. Somebody came to the county, for example, with 10 years. We don't know that. So we recommend that the county manager has some flexibility to tweak where needed to deal with any inequities that are created by that implementation strategy.
That be dealt with at higher, right?
And then again, they're going to be number 3 there. You're going to, this is just one-time catch-ups. This brings people to what the market is right now. And then again, all these same places that we surveyed will probably be doing COLAs in July. So you'll need to keep that in mind as well. The number that you saw on the previous page is a snapshot in time that there were some vacant positions. There are probably some employees who have received those salary compression increases. So, that's just a snapshot in time. It's going to vary, $2,000 or $3,000 on any day probably. But it's giving you a good idea of what we're talking about in terms of cost.
But now, when you discuss that cost there, that is not reflective of the cost for taxes, for instance, or other benefits that play off of that salary, right?
That's correct. That is salary dollars only.
So this $1.3 million is gonna cost us $1.6 million, roughly. I'm just throwing that out as rough numbers, but.
Yes. The other thing is that's an annualized cost. So if you implement that this fiscal year, for example, in February, it's going to be, less than half of that for this year.
Right.
But that is the annualized cost.
Right, yeah, I get that. And I think Commissioner Williams had it. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you brought up, a new hire with previous experience. That would be up to the discretion of the, I guess, HR, the department head, right?
Yes.
At the higher, yes.
If you're bringing in, for example, a deputy sheriff who's had 5 years somewhere else, you probably don't want to bring them in at the beginning of the range. And working with HR, then they can help make sure that each department is doing that consistently, and that nobody's, creating unnecessary costs for the county, but that, the county is continuing to do that in a way that allows them to attract people that are valuable.
I got you, but I guess what I was trying to say, being consistent on how you bring them in.
Mhm.
Bring
That's
them in.
right. That's a very important role of HR.
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation? I mean, if you had a deputy from another county who had 5 years' experience, would you bring them in and consistently give them 2.5 years credit on the scale?
Susan has created a matrix that she uses for that,
Mhm.
and it's very professionally done. So I think as long as you're following that matrix, you're in good shape.
And all the department heads have a copy of that. That is called our salary process.
We got that here.
I can send that to you.
Which say you are implementing it. You're doing it now.
It's already, that's
We
our
started that
procedures now.
last year.
Mhm. After this study, we started that.
And I believe last year when we had these conversations, we went ahead and implemented it for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Correct.
Yes.
But that was just what departments then? What departments did we do then?
It was all of the admin positions in all of the departments. Of course, it would include all of the tax office. It included most of administration and all of the admin positions in the other
But
departments.
not across the board.
No, it wasn't across the board. It was just
So we
those,
focused on
just those.
admin first and then,
And this kind of leads to the next thing because we did increase the sheriff range. Are these ranges since we increased the sheriffs or?
these here.
Yes.
now?
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
it reflects the current ranges for sheriff and then our recommendations. And you did make some steps toward competitiveness. You did not get all the way there.
I would hope so with the amount we spent on that.
Yeah.
Flip side to it is, we did
not get
that,
all
but
the way
then
there.
everybody else.
Everybody else, honestly, the surrounding counties, everybody went up. Yeah,
Everybody.
you got to a competitive market now.
Yeah, when Wake County did 25% overnight,
You're not gonna catch
that
It was a
just drove
domino
the
effect.
state.
Yeah, you can't.
you're not gonna catch up yet.
Get around.
But they changed the game.
Well, I don't presume to speak for everybody at all, but I think I'm gonna have to take some time to digest this book.
Yeah.
And once we get through all of this and I answer any questions you have today, I'm happy to come back and answer any, in the future. You ready for me to keep going?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. We get off topic here. Go ahead.
Okay, because I can't see, it makes it a little bit harder to know when I should go and when I should shut up. So pages 23 through 25 is what you'll actually be adopting. And again, this is bringing you to market and making the classifications accurate for right now. And that's all the jobs that we studied this year. If you look starting at page 27, you can see the actual market data. Like for example, you were just talking about the sheriff's office. If you go to page 34, you can see at the bottom, the deputy was actually where you brought them, was closer to where they should be, but you'll see that, and in the last column, you'll see the average in the market for starting salary for a deputy is $39,715. And y'all had brought them to $36,267. And so we're recommending moving them to the range that's closest to that average, which is $35,680, which would be grade 67.
Well, this comparison to the city of Laurinburg, which is probably, if you want to say, a biggest competitor in that area. I guess because they're not called the same, but they end up being the same.
That's what she's recommending right here.
I don't even know what I was gonna ask now, but.
Well, you will see Laurinburg there. Laurinburg is the high market right now. And I think my understanding is they're getting ready to do a study. I may be misinformed on that. But, the thing about when you do these studies, again, you're doing a snapshot in time. In fact, since we put the salary data on here, Moore County, for example, January 1st implemented a 2% adjustment that's 2% higher than what we're reflecting here. So, it's always a snapshot in time and it's always seesawing. So that's why we kind of try to take people to close to an average for entry-level jobs. Now, when we get, for example, to a job like captain, which is on the left-hand column of that page, we don't so much look at an average. We're really looking more at where Scotland County sits. You're obviously a captain has less scope than, for example, a captain in Cumberland or Hoke, or Robinson County, which are much bigger. So we're not trying to take a supervisory job up to those levels. We're looking more for scope of what's being done here in Scotland. But for entry-level jobs, we try to go close to the average in the market.
Never been like that.
Right.
Y'all jumped the city. I'm looking here, it's 36,267 starting the city, it's 34,850.
Well, if they're just starting to study, they're getting ready to bump.
And that's just based on the entry level, but.
Yeah.
And see,
Do we have I'm sorry, I'm gonna get off topic. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so all of that salary data is there for you to look at. If you go to the next tab, there's a policy tab. There's some, just some management recommendations there. Last year, we had some management recommendations, and we also did a benefits survey and recommended some benefits to be competitive. And you can look at what we recommended last year, what's here this year, maybe sort of as a 5-year plan on some things you might want to consider. One of the things that we've got in this year's recommendations, most counties the size of Scotland County has a consolidated HR function. Yours is decentralized, so you've got 2 positions in DSS, you've got a position in health. And so that creates a lot of duplication and inefficiency. And we recommended consolidating all of that and having them work together and do some division of labor so they're not duplicating what each other are doing, and you can expand what you're getting for those 5 HR positions in the county, and let people become experts. For example, you could have one person focusing to become an expert in benefits and another one be the go-to person for hiring, helping people with interview questions and references and doing some training on effective hiring processes. So we recommended taking a look at that. And then the last tab is all the new class specifications. They're in alphabetical order. So if you see a job title and you want to see more about what that job does, what the requirements are, you can go to all those new class specifications to do that. So that just kind of quickly walks you through what's there. And as I said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have today. And then once you have time with the binder, to come back and address any other questions that you have.
You got anything else anybody need to ask her or?
Again, just to emphasize the importance of consistency from last year to this year. You don't want, to treat folks one way one year and a different way another year.
Yes.
That percentage would be approved off board. If they change the position, that percentage.
Anybody have anything else?
Nothing for her, but one thing, just in planning for this, we did calculate an estimate and put it in the budget for adoption of the salary plan.
You say
For 5 months. Yes,
we did that last year's budget.
yes, sir.
In this current.
Oh, so it's in
So
the
how much
current
was
budget.
that? How much was,
We calculated an average of 5% increase.
but this is larger than
Yeah.
5, right?
How much of this would that absorb?
I'd have to go back in and make sure that that's done, but it was also done. We assumed a 10% increase annualized, but then we figured it would not be implemented before January 15th, so that took it down to a 5%.
But this is how much? Did I read 7.5 or something like that? Was the average, or was it, you said 10?
This is around 8.8% closely.
But that's annualized, but that's an annual.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we can't go. Okay. Anybody else got anything for Becky? I don't think we need to keep her anymore. We got enough. So, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your time. And
Thank you, and again, I apologize for making this more difficult.
oh no, it's somebody's got to do it, right? So.
And if you're sick, we'd rather you not be here.
Thank you, though. Thank you for calling in. And
Thanks for the
we'll get-
opportunity to work with y'all.
No problem. All right, she's off.
Okay.
All right, I guess we can have a discussion. If anybody else wants to discuss anything, or is this something we want to come back for February after we've had time to digest this?
Yeah, I definitely like to read through this.
Yeah.
Let's put it in the agenda.
And I like, we're talking to Ms., I always say Ms. Butler. Ms. Susan, we're taking care of folks, even the custodian, at a significant bump up for a salary. So
Right.
just let them know that, we're thinking about them as well. Sometimes we forget about the little folks on the totem pole.
Well, and when we're talking about it, do you want to have it on the agenda for the February 6th meeting? Or we have a preliminary February 22nd meeting? It probably would be better, that's another one of those budget work sessions, right?
Probably 22nd would be better.
That's what
I
I
think
think.
that's what we did last
That's good.
time. I think it worked better that way.
In a week, we won't have had time to do much.
No, and that's a lot to eat, digest right there. But in that meantime, I would like to say, if the county manager and the HR can get together and say, if we did this effective February
Now,
or
you can't-
March, How much is that gonna be? But I know we've got money budgeted, but,
Make sure it's sufficient.
right.
I was asking Whit, how much lap salary from this year, current year, can we use towards it? But that's cost savings in having a lap salary.
And that was
already.
That was what we figured, that's what we kind of tried to figure in, and we added salary for this. But we'll verify, because right now, Susan's had all of this information, and I've had some summaries on it, but no one outside of this room has this detail at this point. We wanted to make sure the board saw it before anybody else.
You know, the employees.
And I would ask some of the departments behind us, I think Brian's here, BJ's here from the sheriff, they probably didn't have time to really look at it and study it either, really.
They haven't seen
They
it.
haven't seen it.
Well, that's what I mean, and so I would ask for a question, but I don't know that they've had time to digest it, and you may not even have a book yet. So we'll give him a book, but, or if we got it in electronic version, maybe we could send it to all of them.
And what we talked about at the department head meeting last week was, after this, we can send the department-specific information out to the different departments. Because once the board approves it, what we would look to do is, as soon as you approve it, it would become effective in the next payroll. Now, most of the county,
That would be in the March payroll.
Yeah.
now, if it's-
most county employees are, by,
Twice a month.
yeah,
Mhm.
semi-monthly.
Mhm.
So it would be the March, if you did it at the February 22nd, it would start March 1st. Public safety, especially law enforcement in jail. And I don't know how it, what
I would have
EMS
to
plays,
find
but,
my
but
schedule. Mhm.
law enforcement is on a bi-weekly.
First and 15th.
So, well, sheriff's department, theirs isn't always the 1st and the 15th.
Because it's every other week.
Every 2
It's
weeks.
every other week, so, to go with their 171 cycle.
All right, unless anybody else has anything else, we'll just put it off to that February 22nd meeting to have the results, and everybody have time to review and maybe the numbers on it again. So we'll move on to the next item, which is legislative goals for 2023-24 biennium. How about that?
So, other than the NACO goals, that are always out there, of course, I have 3 projects that are on the board. 2 that we're currently working on. One is the public safety building, the EMS, rescue squad, fire department, or fire commission structure. The brick grant was submitted for that, but that is a $6.5 million total project. The I.A. Johnson building, with that, and I'm still waiting to get a better number from our architect on exactly what the next phase is going to be. We currently have approximately $1 million of funds that are already designated to that project. I expect that project, that next phase, to come in at $2 million.
So an additional.
Yeah, so we need at least, I expect to have an additional $1 million in cost in that facility.
So are you saying here to ask again for 6.5 million, or I know that's what the total's gonna be? But with the brick grant and all, it won't be that much.
And we may go off and the brick grant was just submitted up to the state last week. They'll be submitting it by the end of this week up to the federal government. So determining on if they attach it, if the state attaches it to their package determines on where we'll be. If that makes sense. They may choose not to attach it, which means there's no BRIC grant funding available. But that is the total project.
It's 6.5 million.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm still unclear to what all we are doing out there. I'm not clear on exactly what we're doing. So I know we're revitalizing the gym.
Are you talking about IE?
Oh, Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's talking about the public safety.
yeah, I'm talking about IE Johnson.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But what are we doing out there?
Okay, for
On the
Johnson,
IEJ?
renovating the gym, those funds are already allocated in, and those are contracted out. The remaining projects that we have to do out at Johnson, is upgrading the parking lots, which means we have to add a lot of parking lots. Schools don't have to have that much in the way of parking, but we need to go off and go from approximately 50 parking spaces to about 250 parking spaces
Mhm.
because of the size of the building and changing it from educational to institutional. With that, and then going in and upgrading the front half of that building, to converting those classrooms into office space for social services.
Are we just putting cubicles in there? Is that what we're
Yes.
doing, or actually building walls?
There'll be some walls because we need some positions have to have privacy. So there would be like an office in each of the classrooms, but thereafter it would be cubicles in there.
But now, taking into account that if we do something with Southeast Community Partnership, we won't have to touch the annex because
Correct.
that's gonna be their deal. So that will cut down on a lot of what,
Uh,
or have you not?
I've not added any funds in here for them.
Yes, during her presentation, she talked about doing some work to the.
But they would do that in that
Yeah.
annex bill, yeah, that we wouldn't have to do.
Kevin, I'm trying to remember a comment you made. At one of, I don't think it was the last commissioners meeting, I think it was the one before that. Someone had asked you about cost, and my recollection was you said that the total cost of what we would be doing at Johnston would approach 4 million. Did I mishear that?
That's about right, yes.
Does that include the gym floor and everything that you?
That include, we already have 1.5 under contract for their,
And that's just for the gym, the 1.5, is that correct?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, it's up to that,
That primary entrance.
yeah, that,
at the
I
bus
call it the
loop.
back entrance, but just that, it's up to that point, because there's gonna be a wall there that separates that,
At the library.
right,
Right there.
right, to the other part, because Parks and Rec has that, you wanna be able to separate it from the other section,
Still have access to.
and still have, right, so.
Got you.
So the gym part or the entrance to it is
Right.
1.5. And everything, you're estimating the cost of renovating the school portion into whatever we're gonna do would be another 2.5.
Yes, I have, just looking at the parking lots that we did out at, the complex, out at DSS and Health, that was right at $500,000. So I'm assuming, renovating the 40 parking spaces that we have, but then putting in an additional 200 parking spaces, I would imagine that's gonna be at least $500,000 for that aspect. And I'm looking at you, you know better than I, you can probably better ballpark it than I do.
I guess what I'm trying, I get that. What are we planning to do to the gym besides the floor? We gotta put in heat and air?
You know,
Yes.
They've already,
That's
they've
all,
already,
that's all it takes.
they've already done a
This-
roof, they're
Lockers.
redoing those locker rooms.
Tore- tore it out.
this whole project, me and Mr. Williams has just come on the board. This whole project, I don't know about him. This whole project is a blur to me. I don't know what's happening, what's going on out there.
Probably just go out there and let us.
You know,
see.
It's hard for me to vote with good conscience, not knowing what I'm
We
voting
need,
for.
we probably need to take a visit out there, just get a visual,
Yeah,
just get a visual.
And that's something I'll be happy to do. We can go out there, meet with you, have Brian out there. He can walk through what Mike McGirt, and then also see about getting our engineer out there,
Mhm.
our engineer architect. We can go through what we're currently looking at doing in the gym.
Mhm.
And then we can go into, the front part of that building, just go through it so you can see it, see what we're talking
I
about.
saw they tore down the band room and that other.
Yeah.
CTE.
Yeah, but they were too far gone. Yeah, they were.
and also I'd like to know what are we gonna do? I mean, what's the plan? I mean, I'm not against it. I ain't saying that. I'm just saying, what is the plan?
Right.
What are we doing with it?
Right.
Is it gonna be, is
Community center.
it a community center or, is it gonna be, I mean, what is it gonna be? That's what I like.
Right.
And we can,
Well, I
A
think
tour,
we need to
yeah.
go out there.
Absolutely. I think a tour
think
would be
walking
great,
through
and explain what are we gonna do with this and what are we gonna do with that?
Or at least what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because some of it may not come. And he has some plans and stuff there, but,
yeah.
we have to send you all that.
And all of this is on Google Drive. And you've probably not had time to explore this, but you have access to a lot of data that's not there, but I'll be happy to schedule a time. We can meet, if the board wants to go out there as a meeting, or if you just want to call me and then I can go out there individually.
I would like to go out there with the board. That way we all can discuss it as we're looking. I mean, that's just me, but, I can't speak for the rest of the board.
I think it's a good.
I haven't
idea
been out
as
there in a while,
yeah.
so yeah.
And to me, I remember our conversations about cost and about renovating a building that's old. And if we're speaking that what we originally planned was some amount of money, and now the amount of money for renovating that old school building is $500,000 for parking lots and $2 million for renovation. That's an awful lot to put in a building that old.
And right now, I've asked the engineer, our architect, to come back with a better cost estimate on, this phase across here. And and he's not given me that yet. So
Is that the front part?
Yeah,
This-
that's the front
this-
part there.
here's the front of the building.
That's
I got you.
Here's the
School.
main office. There's the gym is up off the screen. It stops. That's
Okay.
planned stop.
So what is that? What is that? That's near the gym, the library.
This is the library.
Okay.
There's the lunchroom.
So what have we done so far, or what are we working on so far? Just the gym?
Just the gym.
It's off. Let me,
And the lady, the presenter from Southeast, said they would do some renovation.
Yeah, but she's talking about the annex.
The annex.
Which is
It's a
that,
different building.
it's that building that's by itself.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
we're
The
adding
north side.
these
Yes.
office space here,
Uh-huh.
under here. We're renovating basically everything from, there's a step down right here. All of this has been gutted. It's been taken back to the walls, floors,
Well, and just
and it's gonna be basically, we're rebuilding everything except for the envelope of the building.
I got you. And Brian, are they gonna we utilize them in the gym for this Parks and Rec plan, schedule games? and
That's
things?
what the gym's gonna be for.
that's what the gym.
Gotcha.
How far are we away from finishing the gym?
It'll be July.
We sat in this room quite a while back, and it was full. If you remember the people that stood in here from that community, and we asked, if we're gonna spend $3 or $4 million in a building, you make you get a building, a new building, something like Laurel Hill or something, or had you rather have this building? And without question, there was not one that said, they all said they'd rather have that building.
Yeah, and and I get it, it's an
Yeah.
attachment, you know, I went through it, BJ went through it. And I get the attachment, you got a lot of older folks from that area,
Right.
and it's more than just a building to them, I get it, you know?
Well, you can't build a, what is that, 60,000 square foot building for $4 million now, so.
Yeah.
No.
I guess, make sure, you
Yeah,
know,
but when you put $4 million in, are you gonna have a building?
Right, well, I mean,
That's,
it's,
you know, that's.
I
what you
get,
gotta look
yeah,
at.
I get what you're saying.
Is it gonna be a building or is it gonna be a money pit from now on?
Well, yeah.
Because that's, a lot of times, that's, you know, with older buildings.
Hopefully not.
With this, what we're already have, we've already issued, a purchase order to do the abatement, so the lead and asbestos abatement throughout the facility. We have had, someone come in and do cammering of the lines of the water, of the sewer system. We know there's problems there just because of the age of the building. Because the courthouse, which is much newer, is having problems, health department's having problems. So we're doing
when
some
you say
areas
problem,
there.
Kevin, what kind of problem?
You have areas where,
Leakage?
it's leakage, you have things that have grown into you have areas where they have bellied out. So like in the courthouse, we've gone in several of those sewer lines and cleaned them, descaled them, and then put in an epoxy lining. We'll probably look to do this in areas where we'll probably do some new bathrooms, what I talked with the engineer about, and so instead of trying to reconnect in, put a new line, punch through a wall, put a new line, and just reconnect to a sewer somewhere else.
Has there been an asbestos abatement on that building?
Yes, we've done that, and that's under contract to do asbestos and lead.
And they did it on the two buildings before they tore it down too.
Yes.
So they tore the band room and all that. Yeah, they have to, you have to
Yeah,
do
before you can haul it.
Well, we'll set a time if y'all want to set some time.
How much was the asbestos abatement? So they haven't done it yet?
The gym area, the area that's already in construction,
Yeah.
has been done. That was added into the contract for there. I'd have to look to see exactly what the PO is for asbestos and the rest of the building. The rest, this part of the building that we're looking at now has less asbestos in it. Actually, most of the asbestos is in the mastic and floor tile,
Yeah.
and, you
As long
know,
as you don't mess with it, you gotta take it out.
So what kind of heating system did this building have or does have?
each classroom has its own unit, a
Okay,
heating and air unit, but it also has a boiler system in there.
that's what I was going for.
And so some of that is, we are looking to remove the boiler system. They said they only used it when it was
They don't,
at freezing.
yeah, they don't have to use it now, they got those wall units.
Right.
Most buildings, you know, they use the boiler not just to heat the building, but to heat the water.
Yeah. But, so with that, we don't have a kitchen. And so we're going to look to remove that.
So,
We're getting an inventory done on the HVAC units that are installed, figuring out which of those can be used, what the useful life is.
the kitchen, Kevin,
Uh-huh.
you got equipment,
No, sir.
they sold equipment.
They took it all out. The only thing still in there is the big hood vent and those walk-in freezers.
So they're not gonna utilize the kitchen, or that kitchen area for events or anything?
No, sir.
Nothing.
I've specifically not added any plans for the kitchen area, other than we're gonna kind of wall it off. You can still have access to it. But part of that is I've had conversations with Lumber River Council of Governments. I had conversations with that southeastern community. Talked with the COG for their nutrition program. I know a couple of years ago, they were looking at the possibility of creating a commercial kitchen because they had problems finding a vendor. I told them at some point in time, they're not looking for the next year or two, couple of years, but I told them if they're interested in developing a commercial kitchen there, you had the potential in this facility.
My next question, Kevin, is what is our need for this? Other than people just want it. I mean, what is our need? What is the need for the county for this building?
Right
What is our
now,
need? What are we gonna do with it? That's what's our idea of doing with it?
with this, what I've talked about is coming in, the primary entrance is still gonna be up here. So coming down, the library would be community use. Just a meeting room, people can schedule things, other governmental agencies can schedule large meetings. So there's gonna be very little done other than paint, new carpeting, things like that, making it look appealing. Here, looking for the library, looking at converting that to a commissioner's chambers. You know,
The library.
Cafeteria.
the cafeteria, sorry. And so that would also be available. The commissioners would have primary rights to scheduling in that, but also have other organizations that could use it for if they need to do, especially more presentations. You have DOT who wants to have a public hearing or something like that, have that available. Also have it set up so that we kind of like the EOC, but have the AV equipment already installed so we can live stream meetings, things like that, and also do better displays for there. Coming up here, looking at converting this section to DSS space, looking at this for probably looking at the plans for child and adult protective services. With this, DSS for years has always been at they've had people in closets. They've done a wonderful job with everything they have, but this is the opportunity to go off and give them a significant relief in space. The split side to it is, the downside to that is it does split the agency.
What kind of problems is that gonna cause with the split agency?
Uh,
I mean, how much, is it gonna increase the cost dramatically of having to take people back and forth, and drive people back and forth, and supervisors going back and forth? Is that gonna create a problem, or?
That's primarily an April problem. But no, the way their structure is, and she can answer it better than I can, but there's already a program manager over the services side and a program manager over the financial services versus the welfare side or the protective services side. There will be more interaction going back and forth, and some of that will adapt as that evolves.
Right.
So that will be a change in the environment for DSS.
I'd like to hear their opinion on it.
Has
Board do something
has
like
their
that.
board expressed an opinion at all, one way or the other, about this move?
I've had conversations with board members that are not in favor of this move.
Have they has the board taken a position, or do you know?
Has your board taken action on it?
No, no, it hasn't come up at a board meeting on the official agenda yet.
Well, and I know who the opposition was on that, and because I hear it about every day. But we still got to address the problem. And I don't know what else the answer is to it. But anyway, go ahead.
And let me just say, if I can, prior to, I've not heard the complaints of the opposition, but I've heard about it. I think Ms. Sneed was one of the very first department heads who was interested in this. I don't know if the staff was all that excited about it, but they were interested, from when we went over and did the tour.
What were some of the concerns?
I don't know, I've not heard it directly, but just that one of the DSS board
Well,
members in particular didn't want to do it.
I've heard concerns about not just DSS, with other agencies, I've had concerns with people about it who are not moving out there. Of course, you do have the question is I'm moving into a 50-year-old building wasn't good enough to be a school. So now is this going to be a good environment for me to be in?
And of course, the neighborhood.
And, the safety of the neighborhood, because there's a shooting out there every day.
That ain't true.
I'm just telling you what I've heard. So it is an unsafe neighborhood. It is, how is this a benefit to me if I'm going to move out there, or if I'm bringing?
I don't think it's an unsafe neighborhood. We've done a lot of work out there. We've never left our equipment and everything else. We've
It's
never
just
had
gonna
any
be-
problems.
It's just gonna be, you have folks who just say things, whether it's true or not, and you can't stop it.
That's right. But what concerns me, and I'm gonna tell you what concerns me is you got the DSS that's got 100, how many employees?
120, about 120.
You got 120 employees, then you have the health department that's got 55, maybe.
50 or less.
So why would you not just move the health department out there and just keep the DSS in that one building? I mean, what would be the problem with that? And that way you kept the DSS together.
Getting the clinical services available in this building, you're going to have extra renovation costs.
Oh, okay. Okay, what I said.
But I think to make that decision, you'd want to know what that extra cost is gonna be and
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and I did not get an estimate on those numbers.
What is your opinion on it, Kevin? I'd like to hear that. I mean, you're the county manager. You see more than we see.
With this, I came up with this plan, and just thinking that this is one of the better opportunities to go off and modify something. With this, if we move the health department out here, we're gonna have to renovate this space, then we'd also wind up renovating the clinical area inside of the health department to make it into office space. That may not be a significant cost, but there is additional cost there as well. Anybody moving out here, they're going to be frustrated and have concerns.
Yeah, but you could do that with a new building.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it just concerns me. It concerns me, and I'm going to stress to the board, it concerns me that we're splitting the department up. That's what concerns me, is splitting the department up. Because that's never good when you split the department up.
But if you put off specific services to this building and specific services to this building, it's not as bad of an impact as splitting them between, right?
But can't you do that in the DSS? I mean, I don't know. April?
No, that, we don't need to think like that. Actually, it's very easy to assume that, oh, we're just gonna throw social work over here and leave everybody else over here. And that's no problem. It's a huge problem. It is a problem to our clients and to our citizens, because I can bring you the facts if we needed to. Probably
Speak up a little bit for me, April, if you would.
Probably 95% of the people that are on the child welfare caseload depend on the services that are now going to be across the table. They need SIP, they need energy, they need Medicaid, they need food nutrition, and so they come in and they use our entire building. They go to the health department for their drug screening. They use our entire building. They don't. That's what they do.
So you would have to split it apart. I mean, You would have to have services at both places.
Or you have to make appointments on different days if you.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna impact our staff, but it's certainly gonna have an impact on the clients, because often we write in their case plans, you're required to go do this, or go on across town to do it now, instead of me walking you down the hall, and you can do everything you need to do while you're at DSS. Or now our social workers have to stop what they're doing and take them across town and then sit for however long it takes, and then bring them back, or take them to their home after that. So, it's certainly gonna have some major impacts for the community outside of what our staff have to say, or the cost, or all those other kind of issues that it brings up. So, I'm pretty concerned about that. I'm concerned about the efficiency for our staff because of that. And I'm concerned about our clients who don't have transportation and already have to make their way to the department for things. And now they'll have to figure out how to make their way to two places to do some things. So that
This,
concerns me.
this may be an unfair question, I don't mean it to be, but do a lot of your DSS clients also, while they're there, have appointments with the health department? Is there a
Not
lot?
so much.
Not so much.
There's not so much crossover with that as one might think. You would think, because it's an excellent setup to have both in that same building.
I know at one time, you had some cross.
Yeah, but it's not like we would think. You don't see them crossing over across departments. Like I said, we do use the health department for our drug screening. They drug screen our clients for us, and so it's very convenient to walk down there and, use their lab, or they use their lab for us. But not as much, and we can find the information on that, how many are checking in both places.
You said it's more of an inconvenience to separate food stamps and.
It's just, the people that come to social services are so interconnected in all the different things we offer. And then when you think about someone who's involved in children's services, which you all know means they have neglected a child or abused a child or been alleged of that, they often need the other services in our building. Maybe they haven't got them yet, and we're pointing them to them. Or maybe we got a report because their lights are off. Well, we're just gonna hop you down the hall here to get your lights on today. And maybe we don't have a 6-month case now, we have, a few weeks. So they're very interconnected, more so than I think people realize. Or there's some legislative mandates. If you if you come in for children's services and are in foster care or something, not something in foster care, we have to give you daycare. Now we got to pop down the hall for this. When you come into foster care, we have to route your income case through the whole building. And so there's probably ties that people honestly don't even know. It's just behind the scenes work we do every day. So.
Well, on another part of that, most of the people that use the ESS is the has-nots, people that need it, the poor people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? But IAJ isn't a poor community. Instead, and
Yes.
most of the people that needs help with DSS having to walk, they don't own vehicles. So would that be a better location if we put all the DSS in there? Or would it be big enough for all the DSS?
If you went in and cut up the library and made it basically a cubicle farm, you could look to what is it, about 35 offices over here? 30?
Yes, approximately. 35 is a good number.
So just the way it's designed is bigger than the complex, but the way it's designed, it would, if you renovated it, you could fit all the DSS into it.
And have extra room, or would that be tight?
Well, I guess the question then bears, what would you do with the complex building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing stuff out,
That just opens up, what would you do over there? I don't know.
But
I mean,
if
it
you
would be
move,
easier access for people who need it.
if you designed this, you would not have, you go in with cubicles, you would not have significant excess, you would not have excess space. You might have a larger conference room, but you would not have excess space if you.
How old is this building?
Built, I think built in 52.
The first part was in the 50s, which was from here to here, I think. Then you have expansions and other expansions.
How old is the DSS complex?
70?
70, yeah, at least 1970, wasn't it?
Yeah, so what, 18-year difference?
The newest part of Johnson is about the age of the complex.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to remember back in the bronze plaque that used to be where they're mid-70s. I think I was alive when it was built.
So are we rebuilding this thing for what we need or what we want? That's my question. I mean, do we need to rebuild it? Or we just want to rebuild it?
You talking about remodeling?
Or remodeling, whatever word we want to use, remodel, rebuild.
In my opinion, you don't need a ton of remodeling other than to
Mhm.
ensure the utilities are proper. It's concrete and concrete blocks, cinder blocks. So
It's cinder block.
there ain't a whole lot to go in there and, do, other than put a coat of paint. They don't even need a coat of paint.
But what I'm talking about, do we need it? I mean, is this something that we need?
Well,
Does the county need it?
I
In
think,
what regard are you saying?
I mean, are we just remodeling this thing because, I mean, why are we remodeling? That's the question. I mean, why are we remodeling? Why do we want to remodel it? Do we need it?
We do need additional space.
I just
For
think
social
that particular,
services.
I think that particular area of both, I think that particular area of town in the county needs something. Something recreational wise, having a gym already built.
Yeah, now I ain't talking about the gym. Now,
No, I
I'm
mean,
excluding the gym. I'm
just-
talking about the front part of the school. I mean, I'm talking about the front part of the school. No, I agree that we need a community center in that area. I agree with that 100%. But what I'm getting at is the front part is fixing this thing up just for office space that for the money that we're putting in this thing, that we could just build just a couple offices on the annex building and have plenty of space for the DSS. Now, what I'm getting at, do we need to remodel this whole front? Do we need to spend that money on that whole front? Or is that something we need, or is that something that we're just wanting?
yes and yes, if that makes sense. Because, yes, you could go over and spend that money elsewhere and build whatever you wanted to do. But the original plans of this, along with the DSS, and there was another department or two in there, not all of it is just gonna be government operations.
Right.
Some of this stuff would be used for incubators, especially down on the end that have the access to doors outside. And the annex, if that comes to not come to be with CCAP or whatever. But like I said, there's not a ton of remodeling that has to be done other than making sure the utilities are proper because it's concrete cinder block. I mean,
He's talking about another $2.5 million.
yeah, but now you're talking about from the gym forward, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all of it. That is just this.
No, I'm not talking about the gym. I'm talking about from the gym forward, $2.5 million. What I'm saying, Scotland County is already a poor county anyway. I mean, we ain't got a whole lot of money to play with anyway.
Well,
I got you.
I mean,
that's why we're asking for $2 million on the IEJ project. We already got $500,000 for that, right? So that would pretty much put us at a net zero on it.
and I'm not saying I'm against it, because I'm not. I'm not
Yeah,
against it. I just want to know why.
Right.
I want to know why we're doing it. I mean, is it something?
I think it'll help too to go out there for you guys,
Yeah.
especially and look at it. So
And to be honest with you, just this is, that particular area I stay in.
Right.
And I don't look at it as indigent, poor, none of that, because I know for a fact DSS, all walks of life go out there. Whether they're indigent, whether they got $100,000, 200,
You serve them all.
it's a service. You serve them all. So I don't want folks to think, well, we're just doing that because it's a poor part of the county. It's not. You got some folks over there that's worked hard their whole life
Well,
and that's done well with their life,
and-
I just need to clear that up.
no, and you're absolutely right. The people that live in that area pay taxes just like the rest of them do. And everything in that area, my whole thing has been from the start of this has been taken out of that area. North Lawrenceburg School's gone. IEJ School is gone. The fire station now
Yes,
is
sir.
gonna be gone.
Nick
I
Pick,
mean, Nick's Pick, I mean, I know that ain't a public,
but it's still
that's
part of
still
that
part
area.
of it. So it's like everything keeps coming out of that community and nothing goes back in
You
it.
gotta put something.
And I think that's a good opportunity to put something in.
Gotcha.
And I think the front area being utilized from that standpoint became, from Kevin, I remember asking county, our department heads, what space could you use in that building? So for carpet extensions that they could, so it's answering that issue or fixing that issue at the same time of trying to invest in
And,
it.
and they wanted to offer some police satellites and sheriff office satellites and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot because that.
So you're telling me we need this big?
I would say we
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
We gotta have
I
space.
think that part of it was,
Yeah.
we've done some things in other parts of the county, and this was a part of the county that needed.
That's been neglected.
That has been neglected, and redoing the gym so it could be a recreational center again
Right,
was I think, a major part of the plan.
right,
And
right.
it was, in doing this, what else do we need to do? There was a lot of conversation about not renovating the school and going in and building a community center, much like what we've done at Laurel Hill and Weber. And there was a lot of conversation, but a lot of people in the community wanted to see
Mhm.
the school worked on rather than come in and build something.
Right, right.
And my concern is it's what we originally talked about money-wise, I think is gone up.
Mhm.
For reasons that we've had no control over and having nothing to do with the viability of the project. It's just gotten to be more expensive. And we got a little bit off the subject because I think what we're really talking about is the number to plug in here.
just ask for.
And just ask for it. And I would say that I think you're 2.5 million short, not just 2.
Go up.
Well, okay.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we needed it.
Well, and I think that's still a valid conversation. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I just, we're gonna spend $2.5 million. I mean, I just wanted to make sure it's something we can't live without.
So presently, Kevin, are those the three things that you're suggesting that we make a part of our list?
The top two are, the third one I want to mention.
I knew you were gonna break the seal on this one day,
What?
And honestly,
the last one.
Is that number right or is that huh?
that number is 4 years old.
Wow,
But
it's double now.
But now, with this, feel free to name it after me because my preference is we start that project the year after I retire.
Well, now, but are you talking about just a detention facility or?
Are you talking about the whole- yeah.
Wow.
It got to be the whole.
Detention facility.
Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
Wow.
It's got to be the whole courthouse and everything.
I'm thinking.
Jail costs a lot.
Yeah, that's.
But Oak County just built a
building.
just a courthouse.
They built just a courthouse for 40.
48, yeah.
You're right.
So we
And-
gotta start thinking about it, but we're not gonna do
Yeah, the
anything this year on
No.
it, right?
Wow.
And I think that number within the last 5 years was for a 125
But-
bed facility
I
at
got you. So we talking
$300 a
about
square foot.
doing away with the one we got and building a new one.
That is building a new one right across the street
And
from where
keeping the
we
one
are.
we got
Also
also.
warehouse was.
Yeah,
Figuring out what we need to do with the one we've got.
Well, there's a lot of space in the one we got that ain't finished.
It's a whole block.
Upstairs, yeah,
That,
upstairs.
that aren't even been, that hasn't even been finished.
Correct.
How many would that house, you reckon?
It's a block.
We
I
went
mean,
through there, it was like
Robert?
35 or 40
Yeah.
people. It went on.
Yeah.
I mean, it don't need a ton of stuff, it just needs basically the cell doors and the toilets and stuff put in there. But it's built, you know, but they were using it for the storage room.
Is our jail, I know how old it is and how outdated it is.
I'm gonna be honest.
Is it sufficient size?
The new jail is 30 something years.
It's built in the eighties.
Yeah, not quite, yeah, but the old jail is still used
For a
for
drunk tank?
drunk tank and those 18-year-old offenders.
How many would a jail hold now?
I think one,
I think it's 120, I guess.
120, 120.
I think it's 120 on a normal. Well, at this point, I would like to add something on the legislative goals, just, and it's about historic properties.
Okay.
John Blue House has got to have some work done to it, and we got an estimate of about $450,000. But historic property has $100,000 of that already that they can put toward it. There is a grant out there for 125, but that grant's been going on 3 years, and they're eating it up in engineering and architect fees. So it ain't gonna be enough to do a lot once it gets to it, and then it's very specific. So I would like to see another 350 that we could add to what Historic Properties has now to redo that John Blue House. Because we're either gonna have to spend it in redoing it, or we're gonna have to spend it and tear it down.
Yeah, okay.
So, because one way or the other, you can't let people go in it now because of the way the porch rails are.
Yeah.
And they like to go up there after hours and people use it to take pictures and they lean on the rails, and we had to stop it because they were falling, the rails gonna break and fall off. So, so that's one thing that I would like to see. Now, the not asking for any money on this, but just to let you know, the train, you know, hasn't ran for the last couple of John Blue festivals. They are, as we speak, out there replacing the ties and the spikes in the rail now. And Anthony Stewart, John Stewart's son, he's in getting the train cranked back up, getting this stuff, you know, stuff that people that used to do it, Annie Coulter and all, passed on. And so it will be ready, because John Blue Festival gave Historic Properties a lot of money for that over the last 2 years, just to get that train running again. But we had to do a lot of the ties, cross ties, train, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And they are out there now doing that as we speak. So they got the new spikes in. So once they get the ties in, they'll put the spikes in, and then we can start getting that.
Is that Historic Properties is doing it?
Yes, yeah. We had the money from that from the John Blue Festival, gave Historic Properties the money to get that stuff done. So the train, I don't think the train's gonna take a lot to get it going. Just a new it's an old Pinto engine in it. It ain't complicated. So I think Anthony can get that going pretty quick. So
I've got something I'd like to bring up too. Last year, we asked for $3 million for the EDC for the spec building. And we asked for a total of a little over 6, and we ended up getting $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so we used maybe $650,000 of what we got toward that spec building. We can borrow the money to finish the spec building. That's not the issue, but if we're gonna ask, I'd go ahead and ask for $2 million for the EDC to finish the spec building.
Okay.
Well, Brian, if you don't mind, you talk to us, you talk to the Parks and Rec Committee. I just want to add this. You brought something about 3 years ago. We met at the Parks and Rec, Parks and Rec Board Committee. You brought up something 3-4 years ago with this. You brought a proposal about this park that was in Hartsville. You remember that? He talked about redoing the splash pad, actually redoing it. and I wanted to see was
Redoing the what?
splash pad need to be redone.
Out there.
Oh, okay.
I guess, Brian, you can go in detail on what needs to be repaired, but I think it's gonna be at the tune of what, 300?
Oh, I thought it was.
Six.
Yeah, we have a proposal for, it's about $400,000.
400. I guess I was including the dragon park piece.
Now, what is that splash pad? What is that?
It's where kids go out there and they can actually play in these water sprouts.
Oh, okay, okay,
Recreation that we have in the county.
okay.
It is, but I wanted to see if he could add something to that particular spot
To grow it.
because it's a nice corner,
Uh-huh.
you know, and the complex is alive and well, because I go out there and walk in the afternoons, and you got soccer, football teams out there, you got softball going on. I wanted to see if we can add some other, you got folks throwing those frisbees on the wood line, frisbee golf or whatever, and it goes all the way around. But I talked to Brian about possibly putting basketball courts out there, because I've been to Pembroke, they got basketball courts at theirs, and this is very nice. I mean, if we're gonna say this place is gonna be for total family, when you come out there, you can do some of everything, we should add some basketball courts out there. And I wanted to see if he could put in place that proposal that you brought from Hartsville. It's more of a water park deal.
Yeah, Hartsville, their Parks and Recreation Department has it's an aquatics facility, basically a water park.
And I wish you had the pictures, it was beautiful. And it allowed families to come through a lazy river and things of that nature. Yeah.
We looked at that a few years ago and went to another area of the state, just to kind of look at it and see what they put into it. That's multi-million, right now.
It is?
It is. I know the importance of a public aquatic facility, with the splash pad being the only one in the county, for citizens to come to get relief in the summertime. Right now, it's about 15 years old. Life expectancy on it's 10 years.
What about the whole county facility?
Mr. Leach sits next to me on the cog, and I swear, he likes that building with his name.
Man, you gotta see it now. You know,
He likes that.
How
building with his name on it.
Hope able to,
They got some type of bond, right?
Yeah, they got that from the state. yes.
state, can we seek similar funding?
That's over my head.
Well,
Yeah,
you can ask for anything from Garland.
At least try.
Garland and
I
Denny.
mean, Hope got that from the
Oh.
state, we should at least try.
The few conversations that I've had with Representative Pierce about all this so far was, we'll get whatever we can. He said, but now we ain't gonna have the money we had last year.
But at least you don't have to be on that scale that they got up there. 'Cause
Yeah.
I understand they got walking, as far as the second floor walking.
Oh, they got
swimming.
$40 million in that building.
Yeah, we don't have to be on that scale, but at least act.
And as a parent, the splash pad is nice. For our kids, but it's.
But
not-
isn't
that's
it
not too-
age restricted?
No, you can go out there, but and I'm not, but it's the same thing it was when I was a kid, 15 years ago. So it is time for us, if we can, to find a way to invest more into it.
Yeah, Hope County got that.
If you get past 5 or 6, splash pad doesn't do much for you. It's just water shooting up.
So I guess what I'm asking again, can we at least look at asking the state?
Doesn't hurt to ask.
They can say no, the worst you can get is a no.
Don't know till you ask.
Well, we actually, we plan to apply for the PARTF grant, Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant, for potentially renovating that splash pad this year. Mr. Patterson and I have, and I've been in contact with that come out and design and construct those types of facilities. So, it's kind of a fluid conversation. We're
Got you,
continuing to
sir.
work on.
Yes, I'd probably like to look and see if we can possibly get that, get funding for that park that you presented to us from Hartsville. At least try to look forward. You have to look ahead. As the county grows, we want to be able to influence folks to move here.
Yeah, and that was one of my things, I look for an attraction, because there's no counties around us that have anything like that. So, that's why I presented it to say, let's think ahead and let's be the trendsetter. Let's get an aquatics facility here so that we attract people
Yes.
here to, the county.
Kevin, can we add that?
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you about how much roughly, but aquatic, I guess some type of similar to what Hope County had. Not to be that big of a scale, but something. They say no, but you don't know unless you try.
I mean, are you talking about a pool, a swimming
It
pool?
could be-
The whole.
It could be,
Inside?
no, it don't have to be a closed facility. It could be a swimming pool. Could be
Kind of
that
hybrid, you got a splash pad with the
with a
pool.
pool
you know.
or something.
You
Move
got-
forward with something.
Can you come up with an approximate cost?
Okay, anything else,
That's
anybody
it for
want,
me. I'll be quiet.
anything?
No, I mean,
Go ahead.
And I'd like
No,
to jump in.
no, I like the aquatic facility. I think we need to think bigger than we thought. I mean,
Absolutely.
Bayfield Beach is fully open at all times for you to go jumping.
Hey, I saw Copperhead. I saw Copperhead.
Yeah, it's big.
Don't you do it. Back in the day, I'd go with take twice ride.
Laugh at the copperhead.
Yeah,
Don't go.
we'll grab them.
used to go swim with them.
It don't work that way no more. Or jump off the bridge and wager in the river.
Absolutely.
Anyway, boy, we got off topic though. Anything else, Kevin?
That, I don't have any other significant projects.
Okay, well, if somebody comes up with something we could think about, we could pass along at our, I mean, but I do know they're going back into session Wednesday. So now's the time we need to get it to them, so.
Are y'all ready for Paige?
I forgot about Paige. Which that won't take.
Also, and I forgot to add
Do we
this
need-
in.
Do we need to take 10 minutes break, bathroom or whatever? Why don't we take 10 minutes till 5 minutes to 11 and then we'll,
They gonna kill you.
Wow,
They gonna kill me.
time flew, didn't it?
They gonna kill me.
people need breaks.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree.
They gonna kill me. You come over here and they go break.
Yeah, he'll be out. He's still getting paid, so. Oh, what's there? Hilton's calling. Okay, the Hilton from Kissimmee, Florida. I don't know about you in Kissimmee, I don't know about it in Hilton.
Trying to save some,
Problem. Time.
insurance.
Timeshare.
Probably trying to sell
Timeshare,
timeshare. I guess. Yeah, James Leach, I was with him the other night at the COG meeting.
Oh, wow.
Talking about happy with that name on the side of
Oh,
that
he's
building.
excited.
Oh.
And if you look on the back side of that building, they got a water slide.
I haven't even looked back there.
Thank you.
We had a water slide.
I can't see nothing for that big.
On the back side, got a water slide back.
I can't see nothing but the big James.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, James, you go, man.
Forgot to
Well,
add
you
in on, the
Really,
agenda,
the
but,
more you give kids to do,
the
the more they stay out of
kids-
trouble. You know?
Yeah, trap.
I thought we'd already
Oh, I
approved
know that, I know.
The amount was, but it just had, I want y'all to say, yeah, this is what we're doing.
We decided to take breaks, Paige, so we'll be done in just a second.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
We're not just wandering around.
Yeah, I was actually kind of watching y'all on YouTube, so I heard y'all kind of go into
How
the,
old the grandbaby?
all right, should we take a break? And then the phone rang. I'm like, well, all right, so Jason's calling.
You should just come on.
I have a Cherokee.
What one?
I have a Cherokee 235.
My dad had a 140 at one time.
I can fly about 175 miles.
Brad, how are you, sir?
I have been better, but I am doing better.
You been sick?
No, well, yes, but just mentally,
I
not
like her pretty
physically.
good. I'm getting beat about 15 minutes. About 15 minutes, I'm landing in Mobile Beach.
Jason, will I be like pointing at you for cues on
Yeah.
slide?
Yeah.
Kevin? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he does all of that stuff. I'm doing well to keep the YouTube up and running.
Yeah, oh, so that was one of my things, is it actually kind of like froze for a second, so I'm like, so that's why whenever you call, I'm like, all right, am I watching it delay or is it live again?
Really?
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I just hope it works from time to time.
That's a lot.
Right now, that's just the philosophy on life.
Wow.
I don't think we've actually met. Paige Pratt.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Adam, good to meet you.
I'm just doing it just, just I hope when I retire, I'm gonna
I was gonna come around and ask y'all for your shirt sizes.
keep the place.
We're gonna try to get some polos and oxfords.
Kevin, can I just look here and kind of point on occasion whenever I
I
get
think
on
that's
something?
Yeah, but if it's a fresh shirt, what size?
I had a 40.
17.
Yeah, Monaco.
17.
Monaco Elite.
Keep going.
Can I get 18 now? At the
And
500.
how long? 34, 35?
We just got a gas,
Yes.
but it's 34, and we, last summer, we took it up to Thousand Island area of New York for 2
Oh,
weeks.
really? 18.
Summer before, we went out. to
18 and a half on the neck.
There you go.
I'll make it easy.
I can go with 18, I don't like it's a tight. So
Yeah.
Whenever it's time to advance.
I understand that.
I get loose.
Not roast. I really not roast off of my personal. And you talk about right. You-
That's what I like.
When I like this, you know, I meant what size you want. You I probably, that drank too much of that coffee. So I can't see, my doctor told me to quit drinking.
Went to Chuck E. Cheese, I said, Charlotte, yesterday for 3 hours with 2 grandbabies, 1, 2, and 1, 4. And you're sober enough to drive?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Overalls.
Yeah.
No, they-
It was.
You may wanna keep
these where
No, I'm gonna get
should have
so that
needed a break.
shorts and.
Renee says,
I thought about that.
So Big J, what have we done? Has he not talked about, we talked about one time about putting walker trucks right there, but I think
Just kind of thought,
that's. Walker trucks right there at Walmart.
I heard
The city talking about doing that.
sometimes, but it's needed.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The number of people walking in those apartments, and it's tight. But I know the people.
City is still
Is
trying to
it?
get with DOT.
Yeah, it was the city that was doing that.
But with you, actually, that part's usually not DOT.
Yeah. I just wondered what it was done there, because I've heard something about it one time, I just never did hear anything else about it.
No action.
No action.
Conversation.
That's a dangerous, dangerous.
Especially at night. So it's
Yeah,
dark.
well.
That's fine.
When Walmart. Bill.
No, I ain't
Well,
going
keep
there.
on.
No, I'm talking about coming out the side of,
I don't know, but something
over
we're saying.
Walmart right there at the stoplight.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, right there at
Is it still live?
And I'm
YouTube.
talking about.
Not on YouTube.
But
It's
why
just,
is that conflict what we're saying?
it's just something in PowerPoint in case of the presentation.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
What's your shirt size, like 17 and a half, 18 and a half?
Oh, this right
Okay.
here. Yeah.
So I tested it. Waited 2 days to test it.
Don't play with my hair right there.
I'll have braids.
I'll have braids.
17 and a half.
I would have.
32.
You gave me your shirt size yet? What about dress shirt? 17 and a half?
That's what happened to us.
Dress shirt?
Last year.
16 and a half.
17 and a half.
We gotta order us some clothes. When we go up to conference, Polk County, get a shirt.
Hey, everybody.
Every day they got a shirt.
Hey, look, we sitting there,
Yeah.
we look like we just broke out of the county jail up there.
And Duke County.
Well, if we're gonna do that, we can at least send you some good pink uniforms.
At least, right?
Well, do like I did that year I went to DC. I got up there and realized I packed everything except for pants.
I like the,
All I had on was the ones I had on. I had to go to Marshall's in a cab down the street somewhere. And I've owned a couple pair, but I put them out when I got home. They were, I don't know what they were, but they worked for me. They worked for that. Oh, and that guy is. That afternoon, right, on the 14th, after we get done with the Senate thing. Well, the 15th, I'm gonna check out early that morning, go to 14th.
Okay.
Hey, you better get it, if you wanna do DC, you better get registered. Registered, it ain't a problem, it's the hotel room.
Oh, yeah, the hotel's already gonna be one of the ones off.
But like John, if they put you across the street, it ain't bad, but, I mean.
This is my car, my wife will take for it.
You ain't going to DC, right?
No, I ain't gonna go this time. I got something I gotta go do. I forgot what it is
Does
now.
everybody have one of the Columbia jacket, one of the nice jackets that wants them? While we're ordering them?
I take.
No, I'm talking about like the gray jacket.
You know, I'll tell you what, go ahead.
Columbia lighter.
Like this.
Ah, shoot, go ahead and line me up.
Huh?
I might as well.
I won't go admit that to you, but I don't know where.
Jason, go ahead and line me up to DC too.
You don't have one?
Okay.
Yeah. I don't mind paying for it. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I forgot.
He's got it right.
We did-
now.
February 12th.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gonna fly with me if I take that? You gonna fly with me if I take that? BJ, come on.
It's 11th to the 14th.
Yeah, go ahead and put me in there. You know Deshaun Leach. Deshaun.
I'm sorry, we are.
That's our time. I took Deshaun up, and he was putting that Swiss beads that big around my head. Hey, when he got back, he's like, oh, look those there. Every time I see him, man.
For this, continue on, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm waiting on you to do it.
Hey, that camera's on.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't do it.
Oh, it is. Let's practice.
Yes, sir. Well, thank y'all for hearing me today. I was gonna say, it might be one of the like easier presentations for y'all, not asking you for money yet. And really just kind of telling you about other people's problems that may or may not really affect y'all. So let me just kind of start back from where we started, that Jane Callahan started with COT Systems back many moons ago. So COT Systems has been the only records management provider for Scotland County. We do have another relationship with a different vendor for some of our records. Back in 2003, we stopped printing kind of the actual copies of any of the documents that came in. So if you brought in a deed, essentially at that point, we copied it, put it in a book, gave you the original back, sent you on your way, and kept the photocopy for our records. 2010, we stopped printing the indexes of our records, so the grantor list, the grantee list, and it's just computerized. In 2014, we stopped doing that same thing for vital records, so birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses. Again, everything is on the computer, and we work off of the physical copies. In 2019, we stopped the local computer backup to go with COT's hosted program, which meant that they've got a fantastic little list of all the benefits of going with the hosted program. And it meant that we had, state-of-the-art security, cloud hosting, so that there are multiple backups, different levels of security. I think 99.9+% availability. This was the highest security system that we could get, which was contrasted with, we had a computer sit next to a window in the side office that had all of our records on it. So we were now in more or less a state-of-the-art facility with people who are presumably paid lots of money to know how to secure our records. And more of the benefits that we didn't have to upgrade our server. The server we were using had Windows Server 2008 on it. It was not a strong enough machine to run anything past that. So if it kind of gives you some sense of how out of date that server was, I think replacing it was going to be somewhere in the 5 figures, somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. So this COT hosting system allows the county to save substantial amount of money, make our records more secure, and also be consistently available. Until December 26th, whenever COT systems got hacked. Still not entirely sure what has happened because they have not shared with us whether it was a ransomware attack, whether it was something that was hacked with their company. But essentially, they took all of the records for over 300 entities, counties, health departments, registers of deeds office offline and locked them down. So forgive me for being glib. We're still in the middle of this. This is still a little fresh, so I don't mean to discount any of this, but otherwise I can just be furious about it. So we went from having access to our records whenever we wanted, whenever anybody needed them securely, to we finally got them back, at least for internal access, on the 16th. So we went the better part of 3 weeks with no access to our electronic records. We didn't quite break out the duct tape in the office, but we managed to bring our old server back online, which allowed us to have access to our records through 2019. We broke out the old books. Everybody in my office is allergic to something in the books because they have collected dust for 15 years. Anybody who has come in since the beginning of the year to get a birth certificate, death certificate, marriage license, it may have taken them an extra minute in the office because we've had to go through the old books where we could, and at times kind of pull out a binder, look through it, flip through it, go, nope, wrong year, flip through it. So by and large, the people who have come into our office for vital records probably had not noticed a difference. Anything related to real estate has had essentially ground to a halt until last week. The attorneys could not go in and search to figure out whether you had sold property or not sold property, put a deed of trust on it. So outside of those couple of transactions that attorneys were comfortable that something had not been sold or they were not paid to do a title search, transactions on real estate in Scotland County stopped. We are now back up and running internally. So I think Friday we had upwards of 5 people waiting for the 2 computers that we've got set up for attorneys to be able to search on now. Over the weekend, we were hoping that the website search was going to be back up and running. It made it up briefly Friday morning before crashing again. So we have instituted a request for appointments for people coming in to search records so that we can try and spread it out so we don't end up with 5 people trying to search on 2 computers. And the lack of information and availability from COT has made this extremely difficult. They promised to give us daily updates, so we would get updates at 6 o'clock in the evening. And 90% of the updates were, we're working on this. Thank you for your patience. We're making progress. I had sent them emails, phone calls, support tickets saying that 6 o'clock updates with no real information were not helpful for allowing us or anybody to actually make plans. That fell on deaf ears. And given just the entirety of the situation, I and 3 other registers have requested the Secretary of State's office to investigate COT and make sure that they're still able to be a records vendor for entities in North Carolina, and got a call from the Secretary of State's office on Friday that that investigation is open. They're working with the National Guard because the National Guard is apparently the expert on cybersecurity. Secretary of State's office was not entirely happy that they received a 100-page memo on what all they needed to find out about cybersecurity. I think they were hoping for the shorter version of that. So as things unfold, I am working with COT to try and get the information from them on what needs to happen for us to have a local electronic backup, similar to what we had before with our records being available, on a box in our office. I'm also working with the county IT department to find out whether that's going to be a server that we purchase or whether there is space on the existing machines for the county. The good news for y'all is that I shouldn't have to ask y'all for money. The state law has it set up so that there's a roughly 10% automation and enhancement fund that we have been putting into. I think several years prior, the county commissioners kind of allowed our office to pre-draw some of those funds to serve for back scanning to get all of our documents scanned. So since I have taken over, we have finished paying that off, and we have accumulated enough to pay for a server, I hope, hopefully, and then some. So we should be able to pull out of that, have that up and running if we need to. Again, requested the investigation with the Secretary of State's office and look forward to hearing good news from them. I haven't quite figured out what good news from them is whether we need to move on from COT or whether that COT really is a functional entity and we can stay with them, which is going to lead us into reviewing our relationship with COT. Officially, we have 2 more years on our contract with them. According to the current terms of the contract, if we are welcome to leave them at any time that we want, we just owe them $1,300 per month for each month that's left on the contract.
Unless they had a security breach. I don't know that. I'm just.
The way I read the contract, no, even if they have a security breach, as long as they fix it within 30 days, which
More than
It ain't
that.
been 30
It
days.
ain't been 30 days.
which
Well,
they may or may not have done.
The new server or the use of the county server space, I think may be okay as a, I don't want to call it a backup plan or an alternate plan. But I think that cloud base is probably better just because you don't have to manage that server so much and have so much space put it. So, but there very well probably is and are other options than COT. So, I don't know that.
That's what I was gonna mention, a separate cloud
Right.
that should only your department can actually utilize. With admin type of rights that will only allow certain people to be able to pull from it.
The problem with that is that we have attorneys and entities across the country that are hitting that database for records. One of the issues we had whenever we were hosting it locally was that a real estate company that rhymes with Willow didn't want to put in their records requests or go through the database to get it. So I think according to COP, the term was scraping, that they were pulling records from the database, which was damaging the functionality of the database. So yes, I think some sort of a hosted cloud-based option is a necessity, whether it's with COT, where kind of my gallows humor is that, the safest airline to fly is the one that just had an accident.
Like, can you check with other registered deeds in other counties and see what they're doing as far as,
Sure.
storage?
There are about 6 records vendors that work in the state of North Carolina. COT has 23 counties. The next is Courthouse Computer Systems.
But it's just COT that's been,
COT is the one who is
it's been
in the mix.
hacked.
Yes.
None of the rest of them, just COT.
None of the rest of them have been hacked to our knowledge, yes. And it may be that COT is the large nationwide player and they were the largest target for ransomware attack. But as we have seen with county after county and entity after entity, it's kind of a question of when and not if.
Well, we can't do anything until they get their server back completely, right? I mean, we couldn't, even if we had the opportunity to move it, because we can't safely draw data out of their server right now.
That was a discussion that one of the registers and I had, that he was a little hotter on taking his data and going home. And I pointed out that you can't take your data and go home. So
But
they
you don't
are,
know what's in there. I mean,
You can take the entire letterbox.
Yeah.
but they are working on getting us a copy of the cleaned and validated data. So we do have that. So I think part of this was just to kind of give y'all a heads up that, given that I had not gotten phone calls from y'all, with,
Oh, we've heard about it.
Okay.
Oh, or I have.
So-
I have. I
so-
definitely have.
So what's this gonna do when they do come back up, and you got all these attorneys and these surveyors that's needing to get
Waiting
into
on-
the records? Is that gonna,
we have been recording as we have gone along. So whenever we didn't have access to even the computer system, we managed to pull up kind of the last document from December 22nd, figure out what its book and page number were. And so, yeah, I was gonna say, I think on the title slide, I said from the past to the future and back again, because we were handwriting in 1/4/2023, 10:23 a.m. Here's the book and the page number. We were putting that on a little Google sheet that we linked to our website so that people had a temporary index so that they could see when things got recorded. So we have been recording, I think Friday morning is whenever the second and larger electronic recording vendor got reintegrated. So we recorded 25 electronic documents Friday morning, I think 43 overall for the day on Friday. So recording is caught up. Friday afternoon was whenever we had 5 people trying to search records so that they could be in a position to start doing closings again. I know we've got,
My youngest sold his house. It was really scheduled for January 18th closing, but this got in the way because the attorneys, but they've rescheduled it now. I think
I'm waiting on the same thing.
February 3rd, I think is the
Yeah.
new date. Yeah.
I've been waiting for
Oh,
over a
I've
month on
heard
closing.
from 3 or 4 people, why can't I get my house closed?
we have heard from many, many more than that.
Oh, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have.
I was just,
And COT is a national company? Or
yes.
What is the acronym for that? What is that COT? What's the word for that?
I do not know, and if I had to make up something right now, it's not something I'd want on YouTube.
So this is something that is not just affecting Scotland County or 23 counties in North Carolina. This is affecting,
North of 300 across the country.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
All right.
anything else?
Well, my, one thing, have they stolen anything from us? Has anything been stolen from us or anything?
From what we have been told, no data was removed from their servers and no data was corrupted.
Okay.
and the only county data that was on their servers is also publicly available on the website.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I don't think they got anything that was secret or whatever.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head like that may or may not be true, right?
We do have some DD-214s that are on that server.
And what is that?
The military discharge document that does have people's names, dates of birth, and social security numbers.
Yeah.
That's your complete history from what you did in the military.
Would that not be redacted?
Or you think that may not be on that?
Well,
It's on there.
it is on there, and that's where, we are still waiting to hear what has been accessed.
Should that be redacted? Outside of this thing, should that information be redacted?
That record is not available except for within our office and within our staff.
Okay, so it's
However-
not a public web thing, you can go out and search. it,
Correct.
214. Okay.
But it was on that server because we did have it scanned
Right.
and available for us to be able to access.
Gotcha. All right, anybody else got anything? Hey, Mr. Pratt,
All right.
let us know if you need something.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Like I said, we've got a couple calls, but nothing major.
Well, I am sure y'all have, but I was gonna say, we worked with people as best we could and hopefully tried to limit the damage, but yeah, it was not a fun experience for anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hang in there.
All right, so that brings us to the commissioner comments. I want to bring up two things, and I'll make them quick, because I think I sent an email to everybody about 14.234,
Right.
the state statute on that. I had Ed and I discussed it at length last week. The key provision in that is the county, not the county, but if the county has a municipality of more than 15,000 people, you fall under those rules. The official census for Scotland County for 2020, Laurinburg had 14,978. We were 22 people below. But
You recount?
well, I don't know how often, if you go back to the census site now, we have over 15,000. So I don't know what,
That's an
estimate. So I don't know which number somebody would use. But this is that new law that the House passed about donating county money to nonprofits, about serving on boards of nonprofits that money is given to. And the guy even went as far in this class, and Hagan, who used to be the city attorney for Charlotte, went into these real specific things about EDC, which kind of bothered me because he wouldn't ever answer. But I think it's because Charlotte had that big issue a while back
They
with
had an issue,
EDC.
they had an issue with a council.
Somebody on the board, and I think that's where all his, because I said, well, you just said if it's a county or state-made board, it's exempted.
Well,
No, not with EDC. They should not be an employee of the county. They should not be part of the county. They should, and well, where did you get this? Well, we don't have time to cover that right now, but we'll, why bring it up, But anyway, so,
Did Ed have an opinion?
Ed didn't know what he was talking about either, but he thought it was the same thing, that he was probably, his panic was from his Charlotte time, yeah. But so, as it goes right now, based on our attorney's advice, we're exempt from that because of, we don't have a municipality in the county that has over 15,000 residents. So that's all I can lean on is that. The other part is, I don't think you guys were here, but when we decided to vote to stay with the Workforce Development Board out of the COG, Lumber River COG, Richmond County is pulling out of the Lumber River COG Workforce Development. They're going to Mid Carolinas. Nobody knows because Mid Carolinas has had some issues with different things.
Are we good with?
We're good with Lumber River, yeah. So, but I just wanted to bring that up. We just talked about that. So anyway, Commissioner Gibson.
No comment.
I'm gonna just, what, our Scotland employees luncheon,
February 2nd.
The second.
In Laurel Hill.
We're at Mario.
11 to 2.
And then our regular meeting on the 6th.
And with me and Bo being the newest commissioners, it's important, even with this pay study, it goes to show even previous board, they really do respect the employees of the county. And they think highly of the employees. So this is a good thing. This is a good message to all county employees. I hope those who are watching understand that. Me and Bo was coming on, but the previous board really tried their best to take care of the employees of the county. That says a lot.
All right, anybody?
I have
Nope, sorry.
two quick things. First of all, if any of you do have any questions about the salary study or anything, feel free to reach out to me, or about salary study. We'll set up time to come in and talk to Susan and go over it in as much detail as you want. Also, we did have estimates in for the shelter at Gibson Park.
Oh, yes, somebody.
The low bid on that shelter was $97,450.
How big is it?
What kind of shelter is it?
Like at Hammond Park.
Just like the one in Hammond Park.
With bathrooms and all that.
Bathrooms and all that stuff.
And then in addition to that, we're looking at improvements for a walking trail there as well, I believe.
And an addition of a swing set, and maybe a small piece of equipment for the playground.
And we've already allocated the money, but
Yes.
you need us to vote on this?
The awarding of the bid, or just make sure you're comfortable with me awarding the bid before
before, it's under $100,000. It's in the informal range. I just want to make sure that you're comfortable and this is the direction you wanted to
As long as
go.
they go through the bid process.
Yeah,
We
they-
did.
Yeah, they went through the bid.
You got 3 bids?
We only got, we approached a number, but we only got 2 bids.
So I don't hear anybody opposed to that, so we'll say that as a consensus
Okay.
matter and go from
Were
there.
the bids close together?
No.
Weren't.
God, what was the bid?
Right at 97.5.
Who were, can you tell? who the two
M2
people
was the low bid,
were? M2, who was the other bidder?
PCI.
Let me just give everybody a date. I think Jason sent out an email that the RCC Board of Directors are having a legislative breakfast at 8 o'clock on Monday, February the 20th. So that would give us another opportunity to have conversation with our representatives if anybody would like to go. I will plan to go.
February 20th.
February.
And they have not said, they did not say to RSVP. I'm gonna email her and ask her if I need to, because I've got several of y'all that have said that you're gonna be able to go, and I'll tell her that as much, but they've just not said if they want RSVPs or not. Another date I'm gonna mention to you about, and Commissioner Gibson might want to mention this.
I was going to, but.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
23rd.
Yep.
February the 23rd, you probably got an email from, we're hosting a district county commissioner meeting here in Scotland County on the 23rd of February. And it's gonna be that evening, 5:30, with dinner and others from our district will come together.
Here.
It'll be in Scotland County.
At Brick
We're
and
working
Mortar.
on location.
Brick and Mortar.
We do brick and mortar.
Brick and mortar.
I sent out invitations for 2 people. They were the only ones who were saying anything back.
So it'll be-
And it's 7 or 8 counties, right? I mean, it's,
Seven.
it's like all the way down to Brunswick County, all the way up to Richmond.
Uh-huh.
Just similar to what that thing was we went to Brunswick County.
Yep, same thing.
I've got a Laurel Hill Forum on the 23rd.
That is the opioid community.
Yeah, we're gonna try to push that back. We're going to push that back.
We're gonna move that.
You can move that.
No,
Oh. I thought we were
What,
pushing
what,
back.
what, BJ, what times?
The pre-issues at 5:30.
5:30 to 7.
It's 5:30 to 7, yeah.
I have, David Pope is going to host the 23rd forum. Or he's gonna be the chairman of he's gonna be the MC of that meeting rather than myself.
On the 23rd. What time is that? 6, right?
That's at 6 o'clock.
You'll let us know what.
But we do want all of our commissions, if we can, to try to get that district meeting.
But you do need to register on that site.
Yeah, you
So
need to
they
I
register
have-
got
on
an
that.
email from
That's the 23rd, right?
It
on
came from-
23rd. No, it didn't.
Well, I meant, no, it didn't. It came from NCACC.
NCACC sent it last week.
Yeah, Friday's when I got it.
Go back and see if I can. It's under it's probably under the weekly, thing that they send out.
Weekly wrap.
Their weekly, their weekly,
I don't
update.
remember it, but it was from NCACC.
Yeah, it's from NCACC,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can send it out to y'all.
I got something from
Send it back.
Okay, I'll ask Kelly, I've got to tell her that we're good with brick and mortar, I'll ask her to send that to me, and I'll send it out to y'all.
We don't pay for that. They pay for it, but we have to arrange it.
Yeah.
So
And we may have to pay for it, and they may reimburse us, I don't know how to.
It's gonna come out every month.
Yeah, but I'm still working on that.
All right, anybody else? Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
I did. If any